Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of SoTellUs Time, where we talk about everything business. We're here to help you guys build your business, manage all the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the funs, and the not so funs. Today, we're going to be talking about, today is our 121st episode.
Wow.
We totally missed our 100th episode. I can't believe we missed it. Totally missed that 100th episode. But today is 121. That's exciting. Wow. Very exciting. Today we're going to be talking about watch your six-pack. Watch that six-pack. Some of us have six-packs. Some of us have the full keg. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. Yes, my service guys driving around in their cars, drinking soda. We got the whole keg, right? Yes. So watch your six-pack. No, we're not talking about six-pack abs. We're talking about the six-pack of your business, right? Troy, we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. Troy's got the examples. He's got it all today. So let's get going.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about business, but we're going to use some metaphors from flying. Most of you probably know that I used to be an airline pilot. That was the career I had, and it was a lot of fun. I flew big jets with 100 passengers all around the United States, Canada, Mexico. And when you're a pilot, there's certain things you got to do, right? You got to be constantly scanning your instruments. And in the instruments, now in the jet, it's a little bit different, but like in the smaller planes, you have what they call the six-pack. And it's 6 instruments that give you pretty much all of the information you need to know about your plane, about how high you are, whether you're climbing or you're descending, whether you're turning, all of that, right, is in this 6 instruments. And when you're flying these small planes, they teach you to do this 2-second scan. So you basically are scanning, usually clockwise, these 6 instruments around and around and around. And you scan for about 2 seconds. You stop for about 2 seconds on each instrument, and you gather the information from it. Then you move to the next one. And now when you're flying, in a beautiful blue sky, it's not that big of a deal, right?
Yeah.
Because you can look out and you can see what's going on. But when you're flying in the clouds or in a storm, you can't see anything outside the aircraft. So the only thing you have is your instruments. And they call that instrument flying, right? And as an airline pilot, we did that all the time. We flew on our instruments. And so we would be constantly scanning the data and making sure that we were, doing the right thing. And I'll give you a story. I remember I had one month where pretty much 5 days a week, I was flying into San Francisco every single morning. And in San Francisco, the fog is just thick in the mornings. So we would be coming in, we were usually coming from Phoenix, we would be flying into San Francisco, and it'd be clouds all the way down.
Wow. And
so we'd be flying in, and the jet that I flew was one of the fastest jets, for a commercial airliner. And our landing speed was way faster than most other jets. So we would be coming in through the clouds at about 200 miles an hour, towards the runway. But of course, we couldn't see the runway. All we could see was the instruments. And we had to use the instruments to tell us were we lined up on the runway right in the center, or were we not? And were we lined up to land on the runway, or were we going to crash into, the field or whatever before the runway?
Yeah. And
so we would rely on these instruments, and you'd just be scanning and scanning and scanning and making sure everything was right. And we would actually, it was crazy now that I think about it now, years later, but normally we would pop out of the clouds about 200 feet above the ground, 150 to 200 feet above the ground. And again, we're doing like 200 miles an hour.
Oh my
And
gosh.
So we pop out and you go, oh, well, that's 200 feet. Like that's plenty of time.
Not at 200 miles an hour.
At 200 miles an hour, that's like less than 2 seconds.
Oh my God.
So, you can imagine yourself sitting in this jet, you're looking through the windshield, you see nothing but gray cloud, but fog, right? And you're going, the runway's got to be there.
Yeah.
It's got to be there, and I've got to be lined up on it, right? My instruments are telling me that I'm good to go. And then all of a sudden, boom, the clouds break, The runway is right there, and you have like 2 seconds to decide, am I in the right spot and can I land on the ground, or do I need to punch the throttles and pull up and try to get out of here?
Holy
so you can imagine how important those instruments are.
Where was this again?
What's that?
Where was this?
This is in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm never flying into there.
Yeah. The other one was Seattle. We used to do it in Seattle all the time too.
Forget it.
Yeah. So it's for us, it was a ton of fun. But as a passenger, I'm like, I don't know about
That'd
that.
be freaky.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking seconds
Yeah.
to make the right decision. So now what would happen though if one of your instruments went out, right? And this does occasionally happen. You lose an instrument. And the nice thing about the 6 instruments is that there's some redundancy there. So even though you might lose one instrument, you can use the other 5 instruments to give you a lot of the data that you need to know in order to be able to, safely do an approach and land the airplane.
Yeah, what did you said they actually did something to, if you had an instrument go out, what would you do with it?
Yeah, so if they're, now again, in the jets it was a little bit different, but in smaller planes, if you had one of those instruments go out, they had these suction cups that you would actually put over top the instrument so that you couldn't see it anymore. And the reason why is because, again, think about it, you're doing this 2-second scan around these 6 instruments, and if one is giving you false information, you're going to look at it and it's not going to make sense, and you're going to stop.
Yeah.
And your brain's going to focus and it's going to try and figure out what's wrong.
Right.
Why isn't this right?
Problem solvers.
Yeah, it's going to try to solve the problem.
Yep.
In the meantime, you're going to tip the plane on its side, you're going to dive down, you're going to do something bad. So you have to block out that, and you have to focus on the other ones, and you have to, extrapolate the information from the other instruments that you're missing in the one. So really important, right?
Yep.
To be able to do that. Now, you might be saying like, okay, well, what does this have to do
with business?
with my business, right? You're talking about aviation.
Right.
But it really does have to do with our business, because in our business, there are key instruments that we need to be focusing on. And sometimes in our business, we focus on one of the instruments way too much.
Yep.
And we ignore all the rest, and our business suffers. Or maybe we don't look at one of our instruments at all, right? And we just ignore it.
Yeah.
And that part in our business suffers. So let's talk about that. What are the key instruments in your business that you need to be constantly monitoring?
And in every industry, this may be a little bit different.
Exactly. So Trevor, what are some examples of things that you would monitor in the business?
I would say definitely very important is marketing.
Yes.
Right? How are we doing marketing? From there, how are we doing sales? From sales, how is our customer service?
Yep.
Right? And then fulfillment.
Yep.
So, because we're going in order here, right? Usually you market, then you sell, then you support, right?
Yep.
And the fulfillment on it. And then it could be like partnerships.
Yes.
Okay. Or suppliers for like our service guys, right?
Yeah.
Suppliers.
Yeah, it could be anything, right? There could be a ton of different things in your business, but these are the key things that you need to be constantly watching.
Yep.
Because if there's a problem with any one of those things, it's going to disrupt your business.
Yep.
Right? I mean, so imagine, like, let's say, we'll just give a scenario. Let's say you're highly focused on, maybe you just closed a big deal, and now you're really focused on the service of that deal and the fulfillment and making sure everything goes well, and you stop paying attention to your marketing.
Oh, yeah.
And you stop paying attention to your sales team because you're so focused on, now I got to fulfill on this great deal that we just got. What happens to the rest of the business? Well, when that deal is done, right, and everything's done, and you come back and finally look at those other instruments, you go, dang, our marketing hasn't been working, and we don't have any new leads for the sales team.
Yeah.
And you look at the sales team and you go, dang, the sales team hasn't closed any new sales while we've been focused on this one thing. So you can see how it's very easy to hyper-focus on one of those instruments.
Yeah.
And let the other ones will fail on you.
Yep.
And then it can ruin your business. Or it may be that you're just, you're just not focusing enough on any of them, right? You're just, and I would see that all the time. We would talk to people and be like, all right, are you doing your 2-second scan? And I remember having an instructor who asked me that. He's like, okay, are you doing your 2-second scan? I'm like, yeah, of course I'm doing it. And he goes, okay, great. Tell me what you just saw. what's your altitude, what's your airspeed, what's your velocity, what's your angle of attack right now in the airplane, what's this, what's that, and I'm like,
You're like, well, let me look. He's like, fail.
Let me look. And he's like, exactly. He goes, you weren't actually doing a scan.
Yeah.
Your eyes may have been moving around the instruments, but you did not actually understand any of the data that was being given to you. And how many times have we done that in our business?
Yeah.
Where we're like, oh yeah, I got this. I'm on top of it, and we think we're paying attention until the problem arises.
To take it a little deeper too, is you may have multiple people within your company that are doing this scan as well. So like in marketing alone, there's so many different avenues of revenue that you should be doing your 2-second scan on all of that as well, right? So you may have somebody that's over marketing that they're going to and they're looking through it, right?
Yep.
The other thing is I would caution though with this, one thing I would caution is that, like Troy said, the suction cup method.
Yes.
If there's an issue, sometimes we just have to stick a suction cup over it, right?
Yep.
We don't want to beat a dead horse. It's already dead. So when you're doing different things like marketing and all these different avenues of marketing, you may have one that keeps giving you a problem, and you just need to stick a suction cup over it, move on, and focus on those other ones to get them working and being more profitable instead of getting focused in on the issue. For me, I'm like a problem solver. I'm like, and I've had to learn in my marriage, right, that when my wife talks to me, she is not always asking me to solve a problem. In fact, her and I, a few years back, agreed upon that if she needed me to solve the problem, she would let me know. Otherwise, I was just supposed to shut my mouth and listen, right?
There you go.
So as problem solvers, we want to solve that problem. We want to jump in and dive in and just work on it and focus on it until it's fixed. But the horse is dead. We can't bring the horse back from life.
Exactly.
Or back from death, sorry. We can't bring it back to life from death. So we just have to stick a suction cup on that problem and focus on the ones that we can work on and be successful at. So it is a double-edged sword. It is a fine line that you're walking there, right?
Yep,
within
absolutely. Because all of it's important, right? All of it's important in the business, and that's why you have to just keep looking and keep going through it. Now, one of the things that makes this work, and I kind of shared this experience I had with that instructor, is scanning the instruments doesn't matter if you don't know the numbers.
Yeah. If you just jump into a plane and take off, or somebody else takes off for you, and they're like, scan the numbers, and you don't know what those numbers mean.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Or if you don't have the numbers, right?
Yep. If you don't have the numbers, you don't know the numbers. Like, it doesn't matter. You can look at the instrument and it can say your altitude is 5,000, but if you don't know that you're supposed to be at 4,000, you don't know there's a problem.
Yep. That's exactly right.
So you got to know your numbers, so that your scan is actually effective, right? And that is how you quickly spot the problems.
I think people's minds are blown right now because we've never talked about knowing your numbers.
Exactly. So if you don't know your numbers, you're not going to be able to tell. And I'll give you a perfect example of like how you can do this whole thing in your business. We have a dashboard in our CRM, and every single time, which I'm in there every single day, like that's one of the tabs in my browser that is open all day long, right? And I look at it multiple times a day. On that page, I have how many leads have come in for the month. I have, and Trevor and I built this together, so it's not just me. So we have how many sales have our guys closed for the month. We have how many prospects are in their pipeline.
Yep.
We have how much revenue have we billed for the month. How much revenue are we going to bill before the end of the month? Like, all of these numbers are in one place on my dashboard in front of me, and I look at them at least 12 times a day.
Yeah, and Troy, and that's, again, we talked about what people do. That's what Troy is looking at. I mean, one of the things that Troy's always scanning. I don't look at that as much. I pretty much, our weekly meeting, I jump in there, I take a quick glance at some of the numbers, and then I'm really focused on my side of it.
Yep.
So I'm not always monitoring what Troy's monitoring. I am monitoring my gauges, right? What I'm looking for,
Right.
what I need to be paying attention to. So again, having people, because if I were to have to do all of it, I mean, we've done it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been rough. It's hard. You can do it, but you're less successful when you do that. So having people monitoring their stuff is really important.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like we said, knowing your numbers. And I think
Well, I would assume, I'm not a pilot at all, but I'm assuming there's a reason there's a pilot and a co-pilot.
yeah, absolutely.
And the pilot's doing something and the co-pilot's doing something else, right?
Exactly.
So even in flying.
Yep, absolutely. The other guy's not just sitting there in case the first guy has a heart attack. Like they're both doing their jobs, right?
Yeah.
And that's really important. And again, knowing your numbers, that's another big thing. I know, for example, again, I watch my dashboard every single day. And I remember Trevor and I think we talked about in one of our past podcasts where I had a day that I looked at it and I'm like, wait a minute. Our revenue should be this, not this. It was shy. It was low.
By a lot.
I'm like, by today, it should be this. And sure enough, there was a issue with the merchant processor. Mm-hmm. They didn't process like over $10,000 worth of transactions the previous night.
Can you imagine if we missed that?
Right.
And
That would have been
never
horrible.
collected it?
But again, it's because I knew my numbers. I knew exactly where I was supposed to be for that day, and I spotted the issue right away. So again, that's why this is so important, because as a business owner, and again, if you're a solo entrepreneur, it's harder. You may not want a 6-pack.
That's right.
Because you can't keep up and focus on 6 things. That's right. You may have to start with a 2-pack or a 4-pack.
Yep.
Right.
Not all of us can have the 6-pack. Some of us have the whole keg, I mean, we just do it all.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, it's like, I mean, for instance, Troy and I were talking about this podcast, I was like, that's so funny too, because if you guys follow us on social media, you'll see that I, just did an RV trip. We came back from it. We sold that RV. I just went and flew over and bought another RV and drove that home. And we're getting ready for more fun and lots and lots more things to come. But even in the RV world, I have my dashboard I'm watching, and it's not just speed and, all of that, RPMs, although I do like to set it at 2,500 RPM and just go.
Right.
Everybody behind me doesn't love that, but I do. So I have my little 4-pack that I'm always watching. I have a tire pressure and tire temperature monitor.
Yep.
So that's always rotating, showing me the tire pressure, showing me the tire temperature, because I never want to have a blowout. Troy and I experienced that. It's freaky. I'm never doing that again. So I've got that's monitoring that. So I'm always looking at that. Then I'm rotating over to my gas. How full is my tank, right? Because we're running the generator. We got the AC going. We got the TVs going and the video games for the kids and everything. So I'm always monitoring that. Then I've got my engine temperature and I've got my transmission temperature. Yes. And I'm always monitoring that, because those are some pretty catastrophic things that can happen if something goes wrong with them. So there's my little 4-pack. And I am literally driving down the road constantly, like, glance over, check that, glance over, check this, glance over, check this, and you just get into this pattern. And by doing that, I have had very successful RV trips with very little problems.
Exactly.
So in your business, what is it that you should be looking at? Are we ready for homework, Troy?
I think we're ready for the homework.
I think we're ready for homework. Okay, guys. So determine in your business, what size pack do you need? What size pack do you have? Do you have the full keg? Do you have the 6-pack, the 4-pack, the 2-pack? What is it? And then, are you constantly monitoring? Are you constantly glancing? And then the key here is, if there is something that is broken or not working well, is it a quick fix? Is it an easy fix? And if it's not something that's just absolutely crucial, right? If it's something catastrophic, when a tire blows on my RV, I have to pull over and fix it, right?
Yes.
But if I'm monitoring and I'm paying attention, a lot of times I can see, this specific tire is getting hot. I need to pull over and let that cool down.
Yes.
I get out, I check around, I look in there, is there any debris? Oh, a grocery bag got sucked up in there, and that's creating some friction. It's creating extra heat. Okay, let me get that out. So I can, a lot of times, stay away from a problem, which is the same thing you can do in business. You can stay away from a problem by checking constantly. And then remember, too, if it's something that can't be fixed right now or doesn't need to be, take your little suction cup and cover that bad boy up, right?
Yep, exactly.
Don't worry about it. Fix it later, focus on that later, whatever, and focus on what is working and be profitable and get the business up and running, right?
Perfect.
Okay, guys, so determine in your business what it is that you need to be looking at, constantly monitoring, and start doing that this week. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. It's so much fun doing this every single week. Troy and I love coming up. I mean, we've just got a whole list of things, and we are adding to that list all the time because every day something new pops up in our business, in our life, and then we say, this is something that we need to talk about with the team, right? We got to get this out with the whole group. So we appreciate you guys, love you guys. Always check out the Instagram, check out the Facebook, check out the YouTube. We're all over, and we will catch you guys on the next episode of SoTellUs Time.